In the pitch black early morning hours along the rural, isolated stretch of Florida highway, a 26-year-old mother's digital footprint was violently erased. What started out as a completely normal Thursday night for a woman who was just trying to earn enough cash to get her daughter back rapidly devolved into a sequence of events so bizarre and so contradictory that even seasoned detectives struggled to make sense of it. This case involves a series of chilling text messages, a rural duplex known for heavy drug activity, an ex-boyfriend who broke into a motel to scrub a potential crime scene, and a final surveillance video that completely contradicts a terrifying confession. To understand how a young woman could vanish into thin air, you first have to understand who she was and exactly what she had to lose. Sarah Gail was 26 years old, blue eyes, blonde hair. People who knew Sarah described her as an incredibly open, spontaneous, and trusting person. She loved meeting new people. She was the kind of person who always figured things out, no matter what kind of corner she was backed into. And in early 2023, Sarah was backed into a massive corner. She was a single mother trapped in a vicious, highly toxic custody battle with her ex-boyfriend, a man named Joseph. Sarah was desperate to get the visitation rights to see her 5-year-old daughter, Dahlia, but Joseph made it incredibly difficult. Sarah had previously filed a restraining order against him for stalking and harassment, and she even had to get completely new phone cell in January of 2023 because Joseph was using her Google account to track her location and read her private messages. Because of this intense legal battle, Sarah was hoarding physical cash. She worked as an entertainer at a place called Cafe Rishk. Now, Cafe Rishk is located in Florida, right off Interstate 75. It is a 24-hour truck stop adult venue. It's a kind of place heavily frequented by transient highway traffic and commercial truckers. It's a cash business, and on night of Thursday, March 2, 2023, Sarah's sister Michelle believed that Sarah was carrying a massive amount of cash on her, somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000. Now, Sarah had a very specific plan for that money. She told her sister that after her shift, she was going to take a huge vat of cash, drive to Okla Suits Motel where Joseph was living, and basically use it to barter with him so he could let her see her daughter. Carrying that much physical cash makes you a target in any scenario, but carrying into some rural place deep at 3 in the morning is recipe for absolute disaster. The night of March 2nd started completely normal. Sarah finished her shift at Cafe Rishk and realized she didn't have a ride home. Normally, she would just open her phone and book an Uber, but whatever reason, that wasn't just working out. Her roommate, a woman named Deborah, was out of town at a retreat, so Sarah was going to be home alone anyways. At around 7 p.m., Sarah called her older sister Michelle. It was a completely mundane conversation. Sarah asked if Michelle could pick her up, but Michelle was stuck at a high school softball game learning how to use a scorekeeping app for her daughter's little league team. Michelle couldn't leave at that point. But Sarah didn't panic. She wasn't scared. She just casually said she would figure something else out. 50 minutes later at 7:50, Sarah sent Michelle a text message. It reads, "Tell the kids I said hi, tell them I love them." That text is so important because it establishes Sarah's baseline mindset. She wasn't anticipating the danger. By 10 p.m., Sarah had made her way south to a Circle K convenience store in Reddick, Florida, right off North Highway 441. High-definition surveillance cameras inside the brightly lit store captured Sarah walking through the aisles, was wearing a sequined tank top and a black sweater. She looked totally relaxed. She picked up some snacks, grabbed a drink, paid at the counter, and walked out the glass doors into a humid Florida darkness. 11 minutes later, at exactly 10:11 p.m., Michelle's phone lit up again with a text from Sarah. The message said, "I'm getting into a random truck with some cowboys. I hope they take me for a ride." It sounded spontaneous. It sounded like Sarah was just being her adventurous self. At that exact moment, surveillance video outside the Circle K caught Sarah willingly climbing into a cab of a black pickup truck with two men she had apparently just met, Leonard Anderson and James Robinson. The heavy doors slammed shut and the truck merged onto a pitch black stretch of Highway 441. And that very text message was the last thing Sarah would ever say to her family. The black pickup truck didn't take Sarah home. Instead, it drove to a subdivided duplex located at North US Highway 441 in Florida. This wasn't a nice, quiet suburban house. It was a rural property known to law enforcement for heavy illicit substance activity. James Robinson lived in one half of the duplex, and a couple named James Scheller and Tisha McDermott lived in the other half. Sarah stepped inside, surrounded by strangers carrying up $2,000 in untraceable cash. For first few hours, things seemed fine. According to everyone in the house, they just hung out, they watched videos, they talked, they passed the time. But at 1:24 a.m., the energy in the room completely shifted. James Robinson pulled out his phone and sent a text message to a 28-year-old man named Tyron. The message didn't say, "Hey, what are you up to?" It was highly specific. Robinson simply texted, "She is here." When you hear that, it implies that Tyron already knew who Sarah was, or at least Robinson and Mormon had previously discussed her. It was a summons. Tyron got the message, hopped into his blue 2017 Honda Sonata, and drove straight into the duplex. He arrived sometime around 2 a.m., walked through the front door, and joined the group. This is where the timeline becomes incredibly sinister. At 2:40 a.m., digital forensics show that Sarah's phone was still active. The data logs proved that phone was open and someone was scrolling through the YouTube videos. Just 17 minutes later, at 2:57 a.m., an absolute digital nightmare occurred. Someone executed a login into Sarah's Gmail account. Seconds later, a command bypassed all the security protocols on her cell phone and initiated a complete unrecoverable factory reset. Now, you don't accidentally factory reset a phone in your pocket. You have to go into settings, bypass warning, and enter passcodes. It's a highly deliberate action. So the terrifying question is, if Sarah was casually watching YouTube at 2:40 a.m., why did she even totally erase her digital existence 17 minutes later? Or worse, was Sarah even the one holding her phone? Did someone else in that house forcefully take her device, demanded the passcodes, and wipe it clean to cover their tracks? After the phone was wiped, the story completely fractures into two totally different, impossible realities. If you ask the people living in the duplex, they initially told the police that nothing bad really happened there, and they claimed that between 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., Sarah just stood up, said goodbye, and walked out the front door to get into an Uber. But police quickly debunked that Sarah never ordered Uber that night. The truth was much darker. Later on, James Robinson reportedly made a chilling confession to an associate. He admitted that Sarah didn't walk out of that house. He stated that he and Tyron had to physically carry an unconscious Sarah out of the front door, grabbing her by her arms, legs, and loading her into the passenger seat of Tyron's blue Hyundai. If she was carried out unconscious at 3 a.m., that suggests something horrific happened inside the duplex. Did she overdose? Was she attacked for $2,000 in her pocket? But wait, there is a massive contradiction that makes this case so baffling. Tyron initially lied to the police. He told Detective Ryan Stith that he never ever met Sarah and that he was completely out of town that night she vanished. When police asked to check his phone to verify his location, Tyron lied again, claiming that his phone was broken and he just threw it away. But witnesses told police Tyron still had his phone. Police got out a search warrant, raided his house, and seized the device. The location data on Tyron's phone completely destroyed his alibi. The GPS proved that at 4 a.m., Tyron was at 24-hour convenience store in northwest Marion County, and he wasn't alone. Police pulled the security footage from the store, and right there on the tape, at 4 a.m. is Sarah Ebisol, and she is standing upright. This is the ultimate puzzle of the case. If James Robinson confessed to carrying an unconscious Sarah out of the duplex by her arms and legs at 3 a.m., how on earth is she standing upright inside a convenience store at 4 a.m.? Did Robinson completely make up the story about carrying her? Sarah and Tyron left that convenience store shortly after 4 a.m. They drove out into the vast, empty expanse of rural Florida. At 4 a.m., the roads are completely dead. There are no witnesses, there is only darkness. And whatever happened in the passenger seat of that blue Hyundai Sonata has never been revealed. Days later, Sarah's wiped cell phone power on just long enough to send one final, incredible faint location ping to the network. The ping didn't come from the duplex in the attic. It came from a place called Lake Livingston LLC. Lake Livingston is an active agricultural farm and orange grove located in Polk County, Florida. It is very massive property spanning over 12,000 acres. It's a maze of dirt roads, heavy machinery storage units, and endless canopies of citrus trees. If someone ever wanted to hire a device or worse, a person, 12,000 acres of private agricultural land is the perfect place to do it. But because of massive failure in police communication, the area wasn't properly searched when it mattered most. Marion County law enforcement told Sarah's sister Michelle that they sent officers out to Polk County property to interview farm workers and search the area near the ping. But when Michelle personally called the Polk County officers and authorities to follow up, they were completely confused. Polk County officials stated that they had absolutely no idea about Sarah Ebisol was even missing. They said Marion County had never contacted them and they never had sent a single deputy out to search that farm. 12,000-acre potential crime scene was essentially ignored while the trail went ice cold. And if all of that wasn't crazy enough, we have to talk about Joseph, Sarah's ex-boyfriend and the father of her child. While police were focused on Tyron and the duplex, Joseph was exhibiting behavior so bizarre and so suspicious that it feels that something out of a horror movie. Remember, Sarah's sister believes Sarah was heading to Oklahoma Motel that night to borrow with Joseph using the cash she had saved. On April 24, 2023, just after Sarah vanished, Joseph illicitly broke into the management office at Oklahoma, where he used to work as a manager. He used a spare key he had secretly made. Once inside, he intentionally shut down the entire security camera system and cut the power. Under the cover of total darkness, he crept down the hall and completely rekeyed the locks on room 119 and room 121. When Sarah's sister Michelle found out about his break-in, she begged the police to go to search room 119. The police totally refused. Now, driven by absolute desperation, Michelle broke into the room herself to investigate. She walked into the room 119. She was hit with the overwhelming chemical stretch of bleach. She alleged that room looked like a sanitized crime scene, with strange handprints smeared across the surfaces. The police finally showed up to the process and the room, but because Michelle had got in first, they declared the evidence contaminated, effectively making whatever they found useless in court of law. And shortly after that, Joseph packed up his things, took his 5-year-old daughter and fled Florida entirely, relocating to Kentucky. And once he got there, he did something deeply unsettling. He legally changed his daughter's name. He changed it from Dahlia to Cora. Why the name Cora is so terrifying? Because back in 2006, a young girl named Coral Rose, who went by Cora, was brutally murdered in Florida. And official police records show that during that homicide investigation, Joseph Marion was interviewed as a suspect. He had refused to give police a DNA sample back then, claiming he didn't trust cops. Out of all the names in the world, he chose to rename the daughter of his missing ex-girlfriend after a murdered child he was once suspected of killing. It is a psychological red flag so massive it defies belief. Furthermore, witnesses came forward to police claiming that on March 29, 2023, less than a month after Sarah vanished, and long before anyone knew what happened to her, Joseph explicitly told them Sarah is dead. So where does the case stand today in 2026? So the investigation had been crippled by silence and death. James, the man who sent the text message summoning Tyron and who allegedly confessed to carrying Sarah's unconscious body out of that house, can never be interrogated again. On morning of May 18th, Robinson's roommate found him dead in Orlando. The cause of death was massive drug overdose. He took whatever secrets he knew to his grave. Tyron was officially named the sole person of interest by Marion County Sheriff's Office. He was arrested on December 20 for providing false information to law enforcement, but he simply posted a $10,000 bond, and the very next day he walked out of jail. To this day, he absolutely refuses to cooperate with detectives or answer a single question. Sarah's sister, Michelle, has never stopped fighting. She has organized protests, funded billboards, and acted as her own detective when system failed her. In late 2025, an anonymous donor stepped forward and drastically increased the reward for information to Sarah to $35,000. Sarah was last seen wearing a sequin tank top, stepping out of the bright fluorescent lights of 24-hour convenience store and climbing into a car that drove out into the dark unknown. Her cash vanished. Her phone was deliberately wiped. Her daughter is growing up states away under a completely different name. And until someone in that very small, very tight circle finally breaks their silence, the fate of Sarah Ebisol will remain a dark, unsolved mystery. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell because we upload content just like this multiple times a week.